Hello everyone and welcome to EPG Pathshala Criminology. This paper is Human Rights and Criminal Justice. Current module is entitled Child Rights Normative Framework. I am Soumya Rai, Assistant Professor, Law, Tata Institute of Social Sciences. The aim of this module is to understand the international and national framework of child rights. Child rights are special human rights of child. The basic objectives of this module are to understand the historical development of child right, to identify the international covenant related to children in a chronological order, to analyze these international covenant with respect to its role in uplifting the rights of child, to understand and analyze the available national framework for the protection of child rights. In this session, we will be discussing historical development of child rights, available international and national framework for the protection of child rights, and finally, loophole and required reforms in existing framework. Human rights are the most basic and absolute rights available to every person regardless of their race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth or other status. In addition to the basic human rights available to every human being, children have special rights invested by various international and national instruments. Although the rights are laid down in the international and national instrument, but due to the age constraint, child is unable to claim it. Hence, exercised by proxy, that is, through family, society and the state. The rights of the child historically kept on changing on the understanding of childhood and social and political institution in and around. Therefore, before going into child right, it is necessary to understand the available human rights and historical development of the rights of the child. In the ancient times, no one thought of investing children with the rights. Under the Roman law, the rights of the children were ignored. Moreover, under the Roman law, children were regarded as the property of their parents, and fathers have the legal right to beat or even kill their children. By the 16th and the 18th centuries, as a result of fall of Rome and Dark Ages, the concept of childhood began to change. It was British law and colonial America which encouraged the development of early rights for children by protecting them from abuses. Throughout the 19th century, respect for child rights gained momentum with the improvement in public schools and other institutions for protecting the rights of children from cruelty and abuses. The 19th century witnessed important movements in child rights. France was a pioneer in the progressive development of child rights, and the idea of providing children with special protection appeared in France. It was only during the 20th century that the concept of child right emerged, leading to a paradigm shift from welfare to right or entitlement-based approach. The 1924 Geneva Declaration of the Rights of the Child is the first in the form of declaration which advocated for child rights. After the Second World War, with the establishment of the League of Nations and eventually the United Nations, human rights became the concern of the international community. The casualties of World War II left thousands of children in a dire need of protection. Consequently, the United Nations Fund for Urgency for the Children was created in 1947, which became UNICEF and was granted the status of a permanent international organization in 1953. Further, as experience of two world wars and with aim of protecting future generation, the UN General Assembly declared the Universal Declaration of Human Rights on December 10, 1948. The 1959 Declaration declared the rights of child worldwide. In the middle of the Cold War and after hard negotiation, two complementary covenants to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights were adopted by the General Assembly of the United Nations in New York. The two complementary documents are the International Covenant for Economic, Social and Cultural Rights 1966, which recognizes the right to protection against economical exploitation, the right to be educated and right to health care. The other one is the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights 1966, which establishes the right to have a name and a nationality. While the 1924 and 1959 declarations for child rights have been widely supported, the question of whether or not children have legal rights remained debated till the United Nations Universal Declaration of the Rights of the Child 1989 recognizes that children have specific rights. To curb child labor in 1973, the International Labour Organization adopted Convention number 138 on the minimum age for admission to employment, setting 18 years as the minimum age for work that might be hazardous to an individual's health, safety or morals. Further, in 1979, the UN General Assembly adopted the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, shortly CEDAW, which provides protection for the human rights of girls as well as women. The Convention under Article 5 Clause B puts an obligation on the state that family education must understand the importance of maternity, the interest of the child must be of primordial consideration, and it recognizes that upbringing of the child is the common responsibility of both men and women. Under Article 16, Clause 1d, the Convention further gives paramount importance to the interest of child in family relation and matter. In 1979, the UN General Assembly also declared 1979 as the International Year of the Child. Further, the 1919 World Summit for Children adopted the World Declaration on the Survival, Protection and Development of Children along with a plan of action for implementing it to the 1990s. To specifically discuss child issues in 2002, for the first time, the UN General Assembly held a special session on children. Hundreds of children participated as members of official delegations, and world leaders commit themselves to a compact on child rights, a world fit for children. In 2007, the 5-year follow-up to the UN General Assembly special session on children ends with a declaration on children adopted by more than 140 governments. The declaration acknowledges progress achieved and the challenges that remain and reaffirms commitment to the World Fit for Children Compact, the Convention and its optional protocols. Having understood the historical trajectory of child rights, we will now understand and locate special child rights under various international and national framework. Collectively, domestic and international laws, programs and policies provide an environment necessary for the realization and implementation of the child rights. Like any other category of rights, the right of children includes political and civil rights and social and economic rights. The basic legal principles relating to child rights are documented in the Convention of Child Rights 1989 and its antecedents declarations of 1924 and 1959. The Declarations of the Rights of the Child, also known as the Geneva Declaration of the Rights of the Child, is an international document promoting child rights. The 1924 Convention mentions the basic rights in 5 points. Beyond race, nationality and creed, the mankind has declared and owed a duty through this declaration to Number 1, the child must be given the means requisite for its normal development, both materially and spiritually. The child that is hungry must be fed. The child that is sick must be nursed. The child that is backward must be helped. The delinquent child must be reclaimed, and the orphan and the waif must be sheltered and succored. Thirdly, the child must be the first to receive relief in time of distress. Fourthly, the child must be put in a position to earn a livelihood and must be protected against every form of exploitation. Lastly and fifthly, the child must be brought up in the consciousness that its talents must be devoted to the service of fellow men. The 5 basic rights of 1924 Declaration were extended with the 1959 Declaration, which elaborated upon the same basic rights, focusing on education and protection of child from practices which may foster discrimination. On the foundation of 1924 and 1959 Declaration came the 1989 Covenant, in short CRC. None of the declaration defines when the childhood starts and when it ends. The 1989 document contains 54 articles divided into 3 parts. It has 41 substantive articles covering a range of issue areas, including those not specifically addressed in earlier declaration, but clearly deducible from their principles. The convention defines a child as any human being under the age of 18 unless the age of majority is attained earlier under the national legislation. The article thus grants discretion to the individual country to decide the age to be considered as a child as they find it appropriate. In India, the age to be qualified as a child varies in different laws. It is the first covenant which explicitly recognizes children as social actors and active right bearers. CRC puts the primary responsibility of rearing children on guardian and caregiver, which will be supported by a state. The convention is based on the 4 core principles, which are non-discrimination, enshrined under Article 2, that all children are guaranteed their rights irrespective of a child's parents or guardian's race, ethnicity, religion, sex, political affiliation, disability, language, and birth or social status. Second principle is the best interest of the child, enshrined under Article 3. It reiterates same what is stated in other human rights document. But the CRC article adds the requirement that states take active measure to ensure to the maximum extent possible for the survival and development of the child. Third principle is the right to life, survival and development, enshrined under Article 6. This principle has influenced legislation, strategies, policies and programs throughout the world and guided legal decisions affecting children's life. Fourth principle is a respect for the view of the child, enshrined under Article 12 and the related Articles 7, 8, 13, 14, 15 and 17, together affirming children as citizens and the right of children to have their views heard and respected in matters relating to them according to their level of maturity. The other extended principle includes self-preservation, that is, right to preserve child identity and right of indigenous children to practice their own culture. The CRC is one of the human rights instruments that addresses civil and political as well as social, economic and cultural rights of child. This makes CRC unique in relation to other international rights documents, as it covers welfare right as well as agency rights. Article 27 of CRC discusses the right to education as a right to promote culture and develop abilities, judgment and a sense of moral and social responsibility to become a useful member of the society. The right to education is declared under Article 28 and 29, formulates the fundamental content and values on which education is to be based. In this way, education has a specific status in CRC, both in terms of access and content. Further, Article 42, which declares that state parties undertake to make the principle and provisions of the convention widely known by appropriate and active means to adults and children alike. Whereas civil and political rights are expected to become effective immediately, social, economic and cultural rights can be implemented over time and in accordance with the availability of state resources. The CRC requires a state to pursue the progressive realization of right within resource constraint, but resource limitation do not exempt states from its responsibilities. Social rights under CRC are enshrined under Article 5, 9, 10, 11, 18, 19, 21, 25 and 27. These rights includes the right to the highest attainable standard of health services, the right to social care for handicapped. Further, civil rights under CRC are enshrined under Article 7, 8 from 13 to 17 and 37 subclause A and include right to a name and nationality, special rules governing the circumstances and conditions under which children may be deprived of their liberty or separated from their parents, etc., protection from torture and maltreatment. Moreover, economic rights under CRC include right to benefit from social security, the right to a standard of living adequate to ensure proper development and protection from exploitation at work. The United Nations Committee has clustered the rights of child, which is easy to understand. Therefore, I suggest to refer the same for basic understanding of CRC. Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948 makes a special declaration for child. Article 25 subclause 2 declares special care and assistance for motherhood and childhood, and Article 26 clause 3 declares that parents have a prior right to choose the kind of education to be given to their children. Special rights for child under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights are Article 14.1. It exempts publication of the judgment where the interest of juvenile person otherwise requires or the proceedings concerning matrimonial disputes or the guardianship of children. Article 14.1 subclause F provides that the criminal proceeding should take care of juvenile age and desirability of promoting their rehabilitation. Further, Article 6 clause 5 prohibit imposition of death penalty for crimes committed by person under 18 years of age. Article 10 clause 2 subclause B provides speedy adjudication and separate accused juvenile from adults. Article 10.3 has provision for juvenile criminals to be separated from the adults. Further, Article 18 clause 4 provides that liberty of parents and, when applicable, legal guardians to ensure the religious and moral education of their children in conformity with their own convictions. Further, Article 23 clause 4 provides for the protection of children in the cases of dissolution of the marriage, and Article 24.1 provides to such measures of protection as are required by his status as a minor on the part of his family, society and state. Moreover, Article 24 clause 2 provides that every child shall be registered immediately after birth and shall have a name. Further, Article 24 clause 3 provides that every child has the right to acquire a nationality. Having appreciated the child rights under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, now we will look into special rights for children under the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. Article 10, Clause 1 has provision for the care and education of dependent children. Under Article 10, Clause 2, special protection is accorded to mothers during a reasonable period before and after childbirth. Article 10, Clause 3 provides for protection of children from economic and social exploitation. Article 10, Clause 3 prohibits children from employment in work harmful to moral or health. Article 10, Clause 3 puts duty on a state to set age limits below which the paid employment of child labour is an offence. Further, Article 12 provides for the reduction of the stillbirth rates and of infant mortality and for the healthy development of the child. And Article 13, Clause 3 provides autonomy to parents and guardian to choose schools ensuring the religious and moral education of their children in conformity with their own conviction. In addition to the above covenant, the ILO Minimum Age Convention number 138 proclaimed that the basic principle that minimum age for admission to employment or work should not be less than the age for completing compulsory schooling and in no event less than the age of 15 years. In 1999, the ILO adopted Convention number 182 concerning the prohibition and immediate action for the elimination of the worst forms of child labour. Further, the UN General Assembly adopted two optional protocols in 2000. The first is optional protocol to the Convention on the Rights of the Child on the involvement of children in armed conflict, and the second is optional protocol on the sale of children, child prostitution and child pornography, requiring parties to prohibit the sale of children, child prostitution and child pornography. As we have already understood the international framework for the protection of child rights, now we will move to understand national legal framework for the protection and development of the child rights. In India also, children were regarded as the property of their parents unless the voices were raised by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru, and the same was reflected in Fundamental Rights and Directive Principle of State Policy under Part 3 and 4 respectively of the Constitution of India regarding survival, development and protection of child. For the protection of the children and give them a better and sound development environment and also in consonance with the International Covenant and Declaration, India has enacted many laws and acts relating to children. Furthermore, Article 51 of the Constitution directs the state to foster respect for international law and treaty obligations. In pursuance to this, India has passed various legislation for the protection of child. As children are vulnerable and lack maturity, they need special provision for the protection. Therefore, special rights for children are guaranteed under the Constitution, which are Article 15, Clause 3 of the Constitution of India provide power to the state to make laws giving special protection to the children. Further, Article 24 of the Constitution of India prohibits the employment of a child below the age of 14 years in any factory or mine or any other hazardous employment. The directive principles under various provisions give direction to states for the protection of tender age of children, to give opportunities and facilities to children to develop in a healthy manner and in conditions of freedom and dignity, and that childhood and youth are protected against exploitation and against moral and material abandonment, to provide equal justice and free legal aid, to secure educational opportunities, to provide maternity relief, to provide early childhood care and education for all children until they complete the age of 6 years, to raise the level of nutrition and the standard of living, and to improve public health. Although the directive principles are not enforceable, but judicial interpretation has made some of the directives enforceable. The case of Unni Krishnan, JP versus the state of Andhra Pradesh carved the path to the 86 Constitutional Amendment Act, by which the directive under Article 45 has been made a fundamental right by the insertion of Article 21A, guaranteeing as a fundamental right to free and compulsory education to every child between the age of 6 and 14 years. Along with the fundamental rights and directive principle under the Constitution, fundamental duty is imposed on every parent or guardian. Article 51A subclause K imposes duty on parent or guardian to provide opportunities for education to his child, or as the case may be, ward between the age of 6 and 14 years. Moreover, Article 243G, read with Schedule 11, provides for institutionalization of child care by seeking to entrust programs of women and child development to Panchayat, apart from education, family welfare, health and sanitation, and other items with a bearing on the welfare of children. The state and concurrent list also deal with various issues of child. There are many central and state statutes under which child are covered. Now we will be discussing some of the important legislation. The Guardian and Wards Act 1819 deals with qualification, appointment and removal of guardian of children by the court and is applicable to all children irrespective of their religion. The Children Pledging of Labour Act 1933 prohibits the making of agreement to pledge the labour of children and the employment of children whose labour has been pledged. Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act 1956 codifies the law relating to adoption and maintenance among Hindus. Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act 1956 provides for appointment of guardians of minors among Hindus. Young Personal Harmful Publications Act 1956 protect the young persons by preventing the dissemination of certain publications that are harmful to young persons. Probation of Offenders Act 1958 protects offender below the age of 21 years from being imprisoned. Orphanage and Other Charitable Homes Supervision and Control Act 1960 was enacted to have supervision and control over orphanages and homes and other like institutions for neglected women and children. Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971 lays the condition when the pregnancy can be terminated by registered medical practitioner. The Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act 1986 prohibits the engagement of children in certain employments and regulate the conditions of work or children in certain other employments. The Prevention of Illicit Traffic in Narcotic, Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act 1988 provides that whoever uses children for drug trafficking can be booked as abettor or conspirators to the act. The Infant Milk Substitutes Feeding Bottles and Infant Food Act 1992 protects and promotes breastfeeding of newborn children and infants. It also looks to ensure that infant foods are regulated and used appropriately. The Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques, that is PCPNDT Act 1994, bans prenatal sex determination test. The Prohibition of Child Marriage Act 2006 prohibits solemnization of child marriage and connected and incidental matters. The Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009, in short RTE, makes the education free and compulsory for children between the age of 6 to 14 years. The Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act (POCSO) 2012 addresses sexual abuses and sexual exploitation of children. The Juvenile Justice Care and Protection Act 2015 provides for strengthened provision for both children in need of care and protection and children in conflict with law. Along with the above legislation, there are many more provisions relating to protection of child under the special acts. Other than the special legislation, the various provision of substantive and procedural criminal and civil laws have safeguards for the protection of the child. India has been an active participant in much of the international discourse on child rights and was an active participant in the 11-year deliberation process that shaped the CRC. Besides ratifying the CRC, India committed to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and its 2 protocols. Further, India ratified the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, the Convention for the Protection of Children and Cooperation for Inter-Country Adoption. India participated in the United Nations General Assembly Special Session on Children held in 2002 and has also committed to the Millennium Development Goals. Recently, in 106th session of International Labour Conference held between 5th to 16 June 2017, as a commitment towards international conventions and attainments of Sustainable Goal 8.7, India ratified ILO Convention numbers 138 and 182. Further, the Indian judiciary, in a plethora of judgment, has protected the rights of child in India. India has various policies, programs and schemes both at centre and state level to protect the rights of the child. Further, for the protection of child rights, National Commission for the Protection of Child Rights, in short NCPCR, was set up in 2007 under the Commissions for Protection of Child Right, that is CPCR Act 2005. The Commission's mandate is to ensure that all laws, policies, programs and administrative mechanisms are in consonance with the child rights perspective as enshrined in the Constitution of India and also the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. For gaining more knowledge on the same, you can visit the websites of National and State Child Rights Commission. National as well as international NGOs through various measures have played an important role in the development and protection of child rights. The measures include research and documentation, advocacy, preparing various reports on the status of child rights like missing child, child abuse, child labour, child trafficking, etc. Promoting networking and coordination among NGOs to jointly advocate on issues which affect the rights of the child, awareness building, intervening in special cases of violation, providing a platform for expression of children's concern, direct action like rapes and liberation of children in servitude, building pressure groups, capacity building, lobbying with the government to review existing schemes towards being more child oriented, running field action project to reach out to children, direct work with children and their communities. There are many challenges in the implementation and enforcement of the child rights. These challenges include reporting of the violation, lack of funds, limited enforcement tools, failures in the implementation of international and national instruments and policies on the part of government like education among adults about the rights of the child, lack of attention within the community and many more. Having understood the challenges in the implementation and enforcement of child rights, now we will need to appreciate the required reform. Childhood and the range of child needs and rights are one whole and therefore must be addressed holistically. Secondly, the dissemination of rights of the child among the adults to be done in a comprehensive manner through various training, social and other media. Thirdly, the realization that protection of the rights of the child is not just the duty of the governments, but all members of the society. Fourthly, all the members of the society must accept that the child is a complete human being and have rights of its own. Fifthly, responsible participation by the children are required. Sixthly, timely review of laws and policy relating to child should be done. Seventhly, there should be proper coordination between making of laws, its enforcement and protection of the rights of the child. Eighthly, the fund allocated for the development and protection of the rights of the child should be used wisely and efficiently. Ninth, for more equitable world, the child rights need to be respected and implemented individually. Hence, India need to generate special funds for child. Law reforms are required in the various laws relating to children like uniformity in laws of adoption, sensitivity in child abuse law, drug trafficking laws, etc. The interpretation of child-related laws should be done in the light of CRC and needs sensitivity from the judges. Hope this lecture gave you an understanding on child right normative framework. For further understanding on the same, refer to self-assessment and suggestive reading. Thank you.